42 years since their last title, but before you can walk, you must crawl, and mission number one for Phil Jackson is to end a two-year playoff drought. Hi, everybody, I'm Jared Greenberg. 3D Dennis Scott. Stu Jackson will join us in a moment to tell us what to expect this season on the heels of what truly was the worst campaign in team history. There was a new system and a new coach and also a whole lot of injuries. New York's $124 million man in and out of the lineup until eventually having knee surgery. Then came the summer with a whole lot of cap space and New Yorkers greeting the fourth pick in the draft, Kristaps Porzingis, as only New Yorkers could. But now it is time for basketball, and the remodeled Knicks need Melo healthy and ready to go.
If you can get in the best shape possible, you have a slight advantage. So for me, it wasn't about kind of losing weight or, just trying to push myself to get in the best shape possible. And with that, came the loss of weight and getting stronger, and you start getting more in tune to your own bodies.
For me as a young guy to play with Carmelo, there's nothing better than that. You can learn from him every day, be around him, ask him questions. So I'm really happy to be with him.
We welcome in Stu Jackson, who has been employed by the Knicks, and Dennis Scott, who was employed for the Knicks.
Cup of coffee.
15 games. Did you forget that, Knicks fans? Okay, so Carmelo Anthony, that is the headline here, and there were the reports right after the draft that he wasn't happy with Porzingis. Now it seems like they're getting along, saying the right things. But Stu, from your standpoint, Carmelo Anthony signs the big deal. What does he need to do for this organization this season?
I think he's already doing it, Jared, and that is he's staying professional. He came back off of this summer, retooled his body after the injury, and, all signs really point to it's really paying him dividends. He looks like the old Carmelo. The best thing he can do is continue to lead this basketball team, stay positive, stay encouraging, and particularly to these young players and the new young pieces that they have, and let the chips fall where they may.
And at this point in your career, Jared, what type of leader are you? We know you can score. To your point, the body's right. We know you're going to, on the offensive end, dominate. Defensively, are you willing to come in and buy in on that end of the floor and show the young fellas this is how you have to be night in, night out for us as a franchise to get back to our winning ways?
Well, they're not as young as they were last year when each night it seemed like we had to go to Basketball Reference to figure out who was playing for the Knicks because of so many injuries that they did have. This is who they lost and who they gained. And I think the interesting point here, as I mentioned, there was a lot of cap space. There was many different ways Phil Jackson could have gone. How do you view what he ultimately did?
I like what he did in that he did not panic and go out and spend money on players that, he'd have to go out and overpay. So he maintained his cap space for the 2016 free agent season because that is going to be the key to building the Knicks. They don't have great assets to trade. They don't have a draft pick in the first round next year, so he really has to rely on free agency. He kept that flexibility open. From that standpoint, I like what he did and still added some complementary pieces.
Dennis, I know you only played 15 games, so you visited New York a few times.
Oh, I like New York.
How many times are Knicks fans going to be told next summer? And they thought they were getting LeBron at one point. They're thinking they can have a chance at Durant.
That may be the biggest thing when I look at this situation for New York Knicks fans. This is New York. This is the Big Apple. This is the Mecca. This is basketball.
This is actually Atlanta. We're in Atlanta.
But I'm talking about New York.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about the Mecca. I'm talking about where they love basketball. And you keep saying next year and next year and next year. You used to live up there.
I did, yeah.
And they're tired of hearing that. They want to win now.
Yeah.
So to all this being said, it's Carmelo there now, the young pieces they've drafted. How quick can the system? That's still one of my sticklers too. The triangle. They're still trying to force the triangle down Carmelo and these young guys. I'm not sure that system fits this group of guys.
Well, how about Robin Lopez? He really helped out LaMarcus Aldridge, who the Knicks didn't even get a meeting with. What can he bring to the table?
Well, I think he's going to do the dirty work. He's going to set good screens and try to create some space. But once again, I go back to the system, Stu. There's not a lot of screens set in the triangle unless you call the pick and roll, few blind pig actions. But with this talent and group they have here, I just don't think the system fits what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and it may very well not. I've never considered Robin Lopez as a pure triangle type player.
Right.
Or a triangle big that's going to make passes out of that system. But listen, I think the real key with the Knicks is that we know they're not going to be a great basketball team, and maybe they're not a playoff team, but I think for New Yorkers who are educated fans, what will be the determinant is how they play. Are they competitive? Do they work hard like a Robin Lopez to show the fans that they still have hope as a franchise until that big day comes?
Does another guy like Aaron Aflalo, though, do enough to now prove for this next summer that this is an attractive place to play?
Well, if he can get back to where he was 2 years ago when he averaged 18.2 points a game in Orlando. Last year he dipped. He shoots 41% from the field and was not a very good replacement for Wes Matthews. So it's a big year for him to see if he can regain that type of form that he had 2 years ago. And if so, they've got a viable player because we know he's a terrific defender. That's
exactly where I was going. If he's healthy, he's going to help the biggest on the defensive end. If the Knicks continue to move the basketball and get better at that, I think offensively he can get his game back as well.
We'll go in depth on the big rookie, but quickly on Jaren Grant, the guy they made a draft night trade for and gave up one of their assets they had in Tim Hardaway Jr.
Love him. Love him because he has a good feel for the game. He's got size. He's able to get in the paint. He's got very good vision. During the preseason, he has struggled a little bit with his perimeter shot, but as we always see with rookies, that gets better as the season goes on. I just like his savvy, his leadership, his demeanor. I think he's going to be a fine NBA player.
Talking to his dad draft night, Harvey Grant, he said, one thing I know about my son, he's tough. And bringing that toughness to New York, that's what they're going to need.
What do you know about the Grant boys?
Oh, I played with Horace a little bit, and Harvey, I played against him. So there's one thing we know about this young man. He knows the game. It's in the bloodline.
He certainly does, and he's got some talented blood still flowing through that NBA. All right, the aforementioned big fella, Kristaps Porzingis. We'll talk about him, what he can bring to the table, and does he remind us of another 7-footer that used to play in this game?
Draft night was an incredible day for me. I was just really visualizing that day since the season ended for me in Spain.
With the 4th pick in the 2015 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Kristaps Porzingis.
Perhaps Chris Porzingis can turn these fans around at some point.
I was thinking they're gonna boo whoever.
Exactly. It was they don't know. Let's go win some games, man, for sure. Let's go win some games.
I'm happy for you. It's now in my hands to prove them that I can play and turn those boos into cheers.
Well, the thing about Porzingis, he's not soft. No, he attacks. He's aggressive. He's not afraid of contact.
When I'm playing, I try to play as hard as I can. But I love to win.
Grant finds Porzingis, fires a three, and hits. Unbelievable range.
Well, it's safe to say that Phil Jackson riled up the New York Knicks fans by selecting Porzingis with the 4th pick. Then back in August, he had Knicks fans scratching their head again, comparing the pick to Sean Bradley, saying that Porzingis almost might be too tall for the game, saying that he needs to improve his core strength and that he might not be able to get low enough to get himself into prime defensive position to body power rebounders or drivers. Fellas, Kristaps Porzingis responded. He was fired up, saying, I'm not Sean Bradley. I know you're Dennis Scott and you're Stu Jackson. What's the early returns on Porzingis?
Well, it's a great point you bring in there, Jared and Stu. We've talked about it a lot here early. Can Porzingis get over that hump of, I may not be strong enough, but I can make shots?
You're exactly right. I mean, the statement by Phil focused in on the negative, but if you're going to give this young man confidence early on, get him in space, because as a coach, you tell players, get to the free throw line, get to the rim. With this guy, it's his jump shot that's going to give him confidence.
Now, playing off Melo, playing off different point guards, he has to understand, find his open sweet spot, and hopefully they share him the ball.
Well, and they will. I think the players on the Knicks will come to find Porzingis because that's what he does well. He'll use his length to get open, use his length to see the basket, get shots. He'll make shots on the perimeter.
Now, on the other end of the floor, how can he be able to move his feet and then be able to get to the basket and then also get back on defense?
Well, even in the post, even though he has that weaker lower body strength now, he still has length where he can shoot over people, and you saw the example there against Gortat.
Now, right here, can he be able on a nightly basis get that shot out of here?
Well, it's a little bit scary there, Dennis, because as he's backing up, you can see the lack of lower body strength in terms of trying to retreat defensively. That'll come in time, but at the rim, he's still able to get a good challenge at the rim.
Can he be one of those guys, late game, late season situation, where he finally gets his confidence and New York Knicks fans can say, you know what, it's going to be a bright future for this young man?
Well, I get the sense of this young man, he's not lacking in confidence. Okay. And it's up to the Knicks to put him in a position where he can be successful. Yes, he doesn't have good lower body strength. Yes, he's not strong, but he's almost like an NFL running back. Get him in space, let him make shots, get his confidence up, and I think you're going to see a very productive player in 20, 25 minutes a game this year.
All right, Knicks fans, be patient. I think the young man can play. Jared, back over to you.
All right, from guys who played and coached in New York to guy who writes about the New York Knicks on a daily basis for the Associated Press, Brian Mahoney, joining us to talk New York Knickerbocker basketball. And Brian, as we've had to do, unfortunately, several times over the last few years, we start off the court. What's the latest and the organizational reaction to what happened with Derek Fisher and Matt Barnes in California?
Well, it's quieted down a little bit since it happened. I think it helped a little bit that they played that night, so Derek Fisher was able to kind of bring it up with the team and the media right away before it lingered for a few days. And I think it helped that they have so many new players a little bit. I think if this was a team that had been here for a long time, the same as you're kind of doing, everyone would be saying, all right, here we go again with the Knicks, another circus kind of thing. But they have so many new players who aren't really used to this. I think it didn't affect them as much as it would have some other teams in the past here.
Before camp opened up, both Derek and Phil Jackson talked about Phil being more involved on a daily basis. What have you seen so far that has bared those statements out?
Well, I don't think it's going to be something we would see very much, and we haven't yet. We saw Phil a lot last year. He was at the games. He was along the sideline watching practice a lot. It's going to show up more, after games and things like that, in the coaches' meetings. He's going to go and, he said, kind of sit and watch tape with them, things like that, really dissect the game, which he didn't do last year. He felt that was more the coach's responsibility, and he stayed out of the way. And I think it makes a lot of sense. You have one of the best basketball minds ever there, and to not utilize him, I think was probably a mistake on both parts. I think they realized that, and if Phil's around, get him in there with them and let him kind of show what he sees.
Brian, do you feel like Carmelo Anthony has fully bought into what Phil Jackson is trying to do long-term in New York?
He makes it sound that way, at least. Whether he really does or not, I'm not sure. I'm sure deep down Carmelo would have probably liked something a little better than what they got this summer. I mean, obviously there were superstars out there. They didn't get them, and it's natural. I'm sure Carmelo wants them. But he does seem like he is dedicated to the way things are going. He makes it sound like he trusts Phil, believes in Phil, likes the players. He got them together, quite a few of them down in Puerto Rico in the summer to start working out early. So I think he does believe that they're doing the right thing. Whether it's going to be the best thing ultimately or not remains to be seen, but I think he at least trusts they're trying to put a good team around him that can obviously make sure something like last year doesn't happen again.
Well, we know that it'll be fun to follow the Knicks all throughout the season, Brian. We expect to hear from you quite a bit. Thanks so much for joining us in the Knicks season preview.
Thanks a lot.
13th season in the NBA, 31 years old, coming off a knee surgery. What can Melo do to make the rest of his teammates?
New York Knicks attempted more than 35% of their shots from mid-range last season, the highest rate in the league. Mid-range shots are the worst shots on the floor, and the Knicks took far too many of them. New York took more than 3 times as many mid-range shots as the Houston Rockets. The Knicks' triangle offense lacked penetration. New York ranked last in the league in both drives per game and shots at the basket. And just 2 years after winning 54 games while setting an NBA record for three-point attempts, they ranked 21st in that category. The Knicks did cut down on their mid-range shots in the second half of the season, and they upgraded the talent around Carmelo Anthony in the summer. Time will tell whether the bad shots the Knicks took last season were about the triangle offense or the players that ran it.
As the league continues to evolve and everybody goes smaller, it's now copy and paste league. But Phil Jackson, the only thing he's trying to copy and paste is what he did in LA and Chicago. And you have to wonder, you always hear him talk about finding guys to fit his system. You heard the data from John Schumann. You get more on NBA.com/stats. Can the Knicks be successful in 2015, 2016, or in the next 5 years playing the way they're playing?
I think they can, because there are different ways to skin the cat in this basketball game, and certainly what's in vogue right now is to either get all the way to the rim or take a three-point shot and try to shoot an efficient percentage. That's not the way the triangle offense is designed.
Right.
The ball is inserted in the triangle offense in the paint area, so you're going to get a great amount of shots in that area. But also, the Knicks currently don't have the personnel to play the other way. They're not a great three-point shooting team. Adding Porzingis this year will help some. Adding Vucevic will help some. But by and large, their personnel doesn't really tailor itself to playing the way the Warriors or the Houston Rockets do.
And that's where, if you're a Knicks fan, you're trying to figure out where does the offensive continuity come. Because sometimes when you're watching them play, they'll come down and they'll try the triangle. But we know once the ball gets in Carmelo's hand, it turns into isolation. So how do you have a happy meeting with Derek Fisher getting those guys to play the triangle, but then again, having ball movement and flow to their offense?
Yeah, and one of the Knicks' primary problems on top of that is however they play, the Houston way or the Knick way, they don't get to the free throw line.
Right.
And that's a situation that needs to be corrected regardless of what system of offensive half-court basketball you play.
Does Melo playing more of the power forward help him get to the line?
I think it's his best position, without question, because you cannot defend Melo at the 4 spot with a 4 player. If you do, yes, you're going to get to the free throw line.
Let's talk more about having to defend Carmelo Anthony and the rest of the New York Knicks as well as we go inside the coach's corner with Vinny Del Negro scouting the Knicks.
Let's talk about the New York Knicks. 3 areas that you can attack them. First, get out and run against them. They were 28th in the league last year in pace. You can get some easy baskets. Second thing, make them take mid-range contested shots. You want all teams to do that, but they were 25% of their offense. They were first in the NBA in mid-range shots. Third, Carmelo Anthony, we know, is a great scorer in the league, but he's 3rd in the league in isolations last year. Make it difficult, make them take contested shots, no easy ones, and give them different looks on defense. Here's 3 ways to slow the Knicks down.
Thank you, Vinny D. Say Derek Fisher's rookie campaign slightly different than Steve Kerr's?
Slightly.
A little bit. Turbulent times, and now there's talk from Derek Fisher and from Phil Jackson that Phil Jackson will be a bit more involved in the day-to-day practice and the execution of Phil's system.
Yeah, and that was surprising to me but again, it wasn't. Remember, Derek Fisher, it was his first year, and dare I say, all-time Hall of Famer Phil Jackson, but it was his first year as a team administrator and running a team. And it's commonplace in the NBA that the relationship between a general manager and a coach is a close one that exists day to day. Why does it exist day to day? Because that evaluation process of your franchise players happens every practice, every game, and that takes the general manager's involvement if you expect to succeed.
And Stu, you've been in that situation. Sometime it happened where the general manager sees one thing and you, the coach, see something different. How do you get that together?
Yeah, without question. By way of example, it's pretty common that a general manager and a coach sit down after a game and, if not, review an edited piece of tape and also evaluate each player on that roster, including the bench. And it may be the 13th guy on that bench. How did he react emotionally? I mean, that's the detail with respect day to day you need to evaluate players.
Well, let's not forget, I made the joke about Steve Kerr, but that was the first choice, and Steve Kerr had experience in the front office, so he understood how that relationship works. The one key stat for me looking back on last year and ahead to this year, regardless of how the Knicks play, is falling behind early and often. People talk about the Knicks coming back and making games tight. Well, they trailed by 15 points or more in 48 games. 48 games, they were 1-47 in those games when they trailed by 15 or more.
Well, that's why we talk about the offense so much, but obviously if you lock down half-court defense, you can get easier offense to get out and run and get some layups. So somehow, I talked about that with Melo. We know you can score. Can your leadership on the other end of the floor lead that way and show guys we got to get stops nightly for us to get out and run?
You hit it right on the head. That has nothing to do with X's and O's regardless of your talent level. That has to do with the skill of energy and hard work. And if you come out together defensively on a nightly basis, that's how you avoid those double-digit deficits early in a basketball game, and that's a mental part of the game. Forget the X's and O's.
Yeah, they got off this strong start. Remember that game against Cleveland? Everybody talking about spoiling the Kings' return. And rough season for the Knicks. What will be ahead in 15-16? The big, bold predictions.
Derek.
This is a great experience for me, man. This is my first time actually on a pitch. Arsenal, I'm an Arsenal supporter now. I've converted. I actually just purchased a team in Puerto Rico FC. I'm just here trying to make my rounds and, kind of build relationships and get some insight and, on how to run the club and what I have to do. I know how people feel when they come see, me play in my respective game, coming into Madison Square Garden, but to come into Emirates Stadium, man, it's unbelievable. To me, it's one of the biggest sports that's in the U.S. now, the way that it's growing. The women's, what they did with the cup, bringing that home and just the excitement around that. Soccer is a world sport. Soccer is the fastest growing sport in the world, especially in the U.S. So I'm excited. I've always been a soccer fan, even when I was a kid. Used to go out there and just kick basketballs, kick, soccer balls, whatever I could kick, I was doing it. But now I get an opportunity to actually be in there, be an owner, of a football club. And I'm excited to build that out.
Wow. We need a towel or something. Stu's over there drooling.
I love the Gunners, man. Arsenal's my team. I'm sorry. I can't help but get excited.
Nice.
One of the best sporting experiences I've ever had. I got to go to a game there. Great.
Take your word for it.
Yeah.
All right.
Carmelo getting ready for his post-playing career. All right, let's do some predictions here. The New York Knicks, worst season in franchise history last year. Upcoming. Will they win more or less than 31.5 games?
Less. That means they have to have a 14-game improvement. Don't quite see it, but I like the look of their future going forward.
I agree with the future, but just not enough to get more than 31.
Melo has indicated he's in it for the long haul. Any chance he waives that no-trade clause and Phil chips him out?
I think possible for the future. I think him and Phil have a conversation. He might get traded, Steve.
It's definitely a possibility. It would make sense on paper, but I think Carmelo's a New Yorker.
Any chance you go back and get a 16th game in a Knick uniform?
Nope. My knee hurts too much.
It's the knee.
Yes,
that's what the issue.
Oh, but I can still shoot it, though. I can still shoot it.